Carl, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here, Scott.
Well, right off the bat, I want to ask you, why a seminar for first responders in partnership with Invisible Wounds today?
Yeah, look, I think the key to really quality mental health services is to be attuned to the service users that you're working with. And the next level of that is you can't be attuned to someone if you don't really have a strong sense of who they are from their voice. And you can't design mental health programs without the voices of the service users. So I can't make a program for Scott Mills by asking Joe Blow down the street. If I want to make a program for Scott Mills, I got to ask Scott Mills, because what works for you and how you live in the world and all that context and the minutiae and the details, that matters a lot if you want to be successful. So when we deliver mental health services, we need to be really clear, and the voices of first responders have to lead the way. And it's up to the rest of us to capture that and partner and then collaborate on what healing might look like for individuals, groups, agencies, whatnot. So it's really about the voices, and it's about the voice of the family members as well. If we don't capture those, then basically we stand a really good chance of making programs that fail.
Well, you're a social worker by trade.
Yeah.
You're now involved in, I believe it's your father's business.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what Dalton Associates does?
Sure. Well, we started way back. My dad started out and he started supervising clinicians as a psychologist, and those clinicians really valued the psychological supervision. They required it for some different types of reasons for extended health benefits to cover it. And essentially we built a community, and it's a network of mental health clinicians, master's level, regulated, psychologists, social workers, nurses, psychotherapists, child and youth workers. And we built a network essentially of clinicians that could work out in southwestern Ontario back in those days. Now we're covering all of Ontario. And then we brought in different groups of people that could do care navigation, care management, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we did that in partnership with agencies. And the primary one that kicked that off is the Ontario Provincial Police Association. So as we designed programs, we did it from the voice of the people, as I said earlier, and we brought a workforce that were skilled and trained and committed to working with first responders and other groups. And essentially that's my role now as the CEO. And 10 years ago, my dad asked me to come aboard Dalton Associates. He was 70, and he said, if you ever want to be part of this dog and pony show, for lack of a better term, pretty simple language, you better come aboard. And then now over the last couple of years, he's stepped back. He's still our president and founder. He does a lot of clinical direction with us. So, but I carry the reins and the responsibility in my role, and happy to do so. I always joke, though, that people might call me a CEO, but I don't know if a CEO counts if your dad gives you the title. So it's kind of like your mom. She was always the #1 fan. But it's been really good actually, and I just feel really honored to lead the organization now.
Now, I know that you've been involved heavily with the Encompass Mental Health Wellness Program.
Yeah.
It's actually powered by Dalton Associates,
right,
which is the OPP Association's program. So you have been triaging for over 3 years the first responders and their families. So this event here is focusing on the families. I was wondering if you could break down just, are police officers using this service? Are family members using this service?
Sure. I mean, it's a good question, because it used to be simple. You'd say no, or it was stigmatized, and people weren't even sure what you meant by mental health services, or it only meant stigma like mental illness or schizophrenia. So now I can tell you, since we started Encompass, we have served about 2,500 people. Have reached out for services, first responders and families. That's on average, 2.5, 3 a day of brand new people reaching out and calling. So not only are they using it, they're using it at way above provincial rates, and they're also using it and they're talking about it with each other. So at branch meetings, at public events, people are just self-disclosing, sharing stories of tragedy, of trauma, of problems, but also solutions, of resilience, of overcoming those. And I really think that, that testament to why people are using the program is because the first responders took ownership for it. Like it's not, it doesn't depend on Dalton. We didn't come with this sort of plate of food for you to eat. You asked for what was on the menu, and you took ownership for it. And the first responders do take ownership for it. The police officers, the OPP, and the Encompass, the family members, they take ownership. We want this program. We stay agile. Here's how you fix it. Here's what you're doing right. Here's what you're doing wrong. Change, sometimes pretty rapid changes. So just stick at it. Don't give up. Be consistent. Call us every month. Stay in touch with us. And, it's amazing what happens when you actually just follow what people ask for. Things tend to work out. And if you do that consistently over time with a genuine warmth and integrity and repair, when things go wrong, it works out. People are there. If I can add to it, look, the first responders in general and police officers are really, what I've learned over the last 3 years, are really high performing people. I more and more as I work with them and work in this program, I learn about, I make them more akin to Olympic athletes. Highly trained individuals, unique skill sets, an incredible amount of focus, split-second decision making, muscle memory, reactive, proactive, preventative. And now finally we're just starting to learn how do you work with high-performing people and the depth of that shame and stigma that was there, and some of the practices that happen at work, whether they're institutional or out just engaging with the chaoticness of the general public. We're starting to learn about the impacts of those things, and people are talking about them, and we're inching our way along, but we're not moving backwards anymore, so that's good.
Well, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of all the police officers and first responders that your people are helping out there, to say thank you. I know it's a huge team. It's a team effort. It's 24/7, and I've seen Dalton people out and around at various events for the past 3 or 4 years, and you definitely have embraced and tried to learn about the culture. So thank you for putting this seminar on today with Invisible Wounds, and thank you for everything that you are doing and your entire team at Dalton are doing.
Yeah, well, look, thank you, and I have a lot of appreciation for Deborah and Invisible Wounds for agreeing to partner with us on this really focused piece. And we're still learning. That's why we do it. We're still learning all the time, and working with first responders and their families. There's not many more compelling stories that you hear than with that group. And we want to not just be outsiders, but we want to be there and for them and sort of embedded into that culture as close as we can anyway, without, we'll never be able to call ourselves first responders, but, we'll darn sure wrap around them.
Well, your efforts are appreciated. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Scott.